The city of thatch lamps smelled of metal and rain. Min An arrived before sunrise, carrying only 2 suitcases. Her new apartment was small, walls the color of damp paper. From the window, the Fuang Min Tower rose like a blade. Glass and steel, cold and perfect, everything her past was. She unpacked in silence, each fold of clothing too precise. Control was her comfort, numbers her language. The world had taught her that emotions were liabilities. She opened her old black notebook, edges worn by years. Inside, neat rows of handwriting marked her survival. Dates, amounts, and brief notes written in a steady hand. Rent overpaid, bruises disguised, words that still burned. It wasn't a diary, it was evidence. Each line a receipt of pain, documented like an audit trail. The notebook smelled faintly of ink and resolve, and placed it on the desk, beside her company badge. Her name printed cleanly, no title, no decoration. She traced the letters, as if confirming her existence. Tomorrow, she would step into the tower as someone new. But the ghosts of the old house never traveled far. That night, she couldn't sleep. Rain drummed against the glass, steady as a pulse. She thought of her mother's smile, thin and brittle. Of the man whose rage echoed through her childhood walls. He taught her that silence was safety. He taught her that power hid in control. Now she would use that lesson against him. Her mind replayed the scholarship speech from years ago. The applause had been soft, polite, quickly forgotten. Her mother had called it a help, not an achievement. Her stepfather had grunted, beer in hand, unimpressed. In that moment, and learned the math of resentment. She was not a daughter, she was an expense. So she learned counting the way soldiers learn terrain. Every ledger a battlefield, every column a line of defense. Truth in numbers was clean, unarguable, incorruptible. And if the world ran on numbers, she would master them. The next morning, the elevator mirrored her reflection. Her face calm, precise, unreadable. She walked into the Fuang Min Tower at 7:59 a.m. Her ID beeped green, access granted. The air smelled of coffee and ambition. Desks lined like soldiers, screens glowing blue. No laughter, no clutter, only the hum of machines. She liked it. Order had its own kind of peace. The department head greeted her with corporate warmth. "We value accuracy above all," he said. And smiled. Accuracy was the only thing she had left. By noon, she memorized her logins, her hierarchy, her exits. She learned who spoke too loudly and who watched too much. At lunch, she sat alone, eating methodically. The taste of food didn't matter. The routine did. When the day ended, she returned to her quiet room. The tower's lights shimmered outside like a heartbeat. And opened her notebook again, wrote one line at the bottom. Begin balance, 0. Assets, time. Liabilities, fear. Then she closed it, exhaled, and turned off the light. 2 weeks passed before the first crack appeared. Min An had learned the rhythm of the tower. Coffee at 8, reports at 10, silence after lunch. People spoke in acronyms, smiled without warmth. She liked the precision, the lack of chaos. But patterns always revealed the hidden lines. One afternoon, she opened the internal structure chart. Her eyes traced titles, departments, and reporting paths. Then she froze. A name sat under strategic consultant, procurement. Lam Hao. Her chest tightened, air caught like a lock snapping shut. It couldn't be him, not here, not this close. But the name glared back, black on white, undeniable. The same man who once kicked through her bedroom door. The same voice that said, "You should know better." For a moment, the screen blurred behind a film of memory. She forced herself to breathe. Inhale 4, hold 7, exhale 8. Numbers steadied her when nothing else did. She checked the employee registry. His address was different, but his ID photo was clear. He was older, heavier, dressed in the arrogance of success. Her stomach turned cold. The system she trusted had let the monster in. She minimized the window, but the name lingered. That night, she walked home through mist and streetlights. Her reflection followed her in every dark window. The past was never gone. It had just changed its clothes. She sat at her desk, laptop glowing in the dim light. The company's payment records opened with a click. Invoices, vendor codes, approval chains, digital footprints. She scanned through columns, searching for anomalies. The data spoke in whispers only she could hear. It didn't take long. A vendor named Hassan Supplies had a mailing address at a UPS store. Another named Keystone Logistics shared the same box number. 12 companies, 12 names, one address. The signatures on each delivery note were identical. A looping, careless scrawl she would recognize anywhere. Her pulse steadied, slow and deliberate. This was his work, polished and hidden under corporate gloss. Fraud disguised as efficiency. She gathered every detail, cross-referencing times and amounts. Each transaction formed a chain leading back to him. By dawn, her report was ready. Concise, factual, unemotional. She sent it directly to the chief financial officer, Mrs. NGUY letter 1EC7T. Subject line: potential vendor irregularities, high priority. Her hand hovered before clicking send. Then she pressed it. The message left with a quiet whoosh. And closed the laptop, hands trembling but steady inside. She had done what was right. For once, she believed truth would matter. The next day, a reply blinked in her inbox. Just one line. Let's table this for review next month. Her throat tightened, but she didn't curse. That was how silence dressed itself in power. They weren't blind, they were complicit, and stared at the tower outside her window that night. Its mirrored surface reflected her own steady face. The rules had changed. She whispered the words like a vow. If they won't see it, I'll make them. He appeared without warning, just after noon. The air in the office shifted before she even saw him. Perfume and arrogance arrived first, then his voice. Well, look who found herself a real job, he said. Min An's fingers froze above the keyboard. She turned slowly, forcing her breath to stay even. Lam Hao stood behind her cubicle, tall, smug, uninvited. His suit was expensive, his smile the same old threat. You've grown, he said softly. Your mother worries. The words slid through her like oil over glass. I'm sure she does, and replied, voice flat. He leaned closer, one hand resting on the cubicle wall. A gesture of ownership, the same as years ago. Try to keep your head down this time, he murmured. You always did make trouble. She looked up at him, eyes steady, unflinching. I don't make trouble, she said. I record it. The smirk faltered, just for a second. He straightened his tie, forcing a laugh that didn't land. Still sharp, be careful where you point that. Then he left, his cologne lingering like poison, and sat still until his footsteps faded. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. It was fury, controlled, cold, deliberate. He had found her again, but this was not his house. Here there were rules, systems, records. The language she spoke fluently. That night, she walked the city streets until the lights blurred. She counted her steps, her breaths, her resolve. The past had followed her into glass and steel. But this time, she had armor of her own making. When she reached home, the apartment felt different. Smaller, tighter, like a vault ready to seal. She opened her notebook, the black one with careful lines. The ink from her last entry had barely faded. She wrote beneath it, confirmed, he's here. Her pen didn't hesitate. Next line, he will fall by his own math. The words steadied her heartbeat. And spent hours studying the company's internal controls. Every audit trail, every approval hierarchy, every loophole. The system wasn't broken, it was obedient. It served those who knew how to manipulate it. Hao had found his new battlefield. But so had she. She started drafting a plan, line by line, rule by rule. Nothing emotional, nothing impulsive. Only logic, structure, consequence. He had always ruled by chaos. She would answer with order. By dawn, her outline was done. A quiet, invisible blueprint for destruction. In the reflection of the tower outside her window. She saw not fear, but strategy. Every bruise, every insult, every dismissal, they were data now. She whispered to the dark room. "You taught me control. You'll regret that." Then she closed the notebook, locked it in her drawer. Sleep didn't come, but calm did. Tomorrow, the war would begin quietly, one spreadsheet at a time. And spent days building a vendor integrity protocol that would scan every new supplier address against commercial geo-databases in real time. She implemented an EIN authentication check that queried federal registries and froze any account with mismatched taxpayer IDs instantly. Every invoice uploaded would carry metadata analysis, including IP geolocation and device signature, to detect collusive submissions across vendors. She trained a pattern recognition routine to compare handwritten delivery signatures and flag identical loops and flourishes as likely forgery. A checksum watermarking system embedded cryptographic hashes into PDF metadata, so any post hoc edit would trigger an immutable alert. And hid these modules inside a routine update, labeled as minor procurement optimizations, to avoid executive scrutiny and requests for credit. She wrote a reverse exposure clause into the dry legalese of the risk policy that would act like a ticking clock. If an executive deferred a flagged item for more than 14 business days, the clause would automatically package all related evidence. That package included her original memorandum, vendor lists, logs of access gaps, and copies of unsigned rebate agreements compiled into one file. She created a silent webhook to forward the encrypted bundle to an outside forensic accounting firm and the corporate insurers if triggered. And called an old colleague from university who now worked in DevSecOps and begged one small favor without revealing the whole plan. He inserted a discreet listener in the alerting system that would fire only when the reverse exposure keywords appeared in any notification. The listener sent a blind carbon copy to an encrypted mailbox she controlled at a reputable law practice she had researched. She printed hard copies of every relevant file, stacked them neatly, and labeled each envelope with dates and cross-references for redundancy. During her lunch break, she rented a safe deposit box in a quiet old bank and slid the sealed envelope inside for physical preservation. She placed the black notebook she had carried from home into the box beside the printed packet and closed the heavy steel door. And never sought recognition for the code. She preferred that the systems themselves become the agent of accountability. She also added non-overridable red flags to vendor profiles that required director-level override for any payment once triggered. These flags were visible in dashboards and created audit trails that could not be retroactively erased without leaving traces. And rehearsed every possible corporate maneuver in her head, imagining pauses, delays, denials, and how the policy would respond. She crafted an innocuous UI element called Acknowledge Defer to make executives initiate the exact action that would start the countdown. Her documentation was clinical, citing accounting standards, revenue recognition rules, and the legal basis for escalations without emotion. When the patch rolled out, it appeared as a routine governance improvement and received no applause, which suited her plan perfectly. At night, she monitored server logs and alerts, watching for the first tiny green flag that would mean the system had detected tampering. She kept one copy of everything in her apartment, encrypted and backed up, because digital scars are still vulnerable without paper witnesses. The invitation arrived on cream paper, embossed with silver ink. Strategic Alignment Dinner, it read, hosted by the board of Fuong Min. Min stared at it for a long time before folding it in half. Attendance was marked as mandatory for senior audit personnel. She wasn't senior, but she knew why she'd been summoned. The dinner was set on the 44th floor, under glass and light. A skyline of mirrors stretched beyond the windows, silent and sharp. Inside, laughter clinked like glass against glass. Executives in tailored suits traded smiles polished by habit. At the far end of the table, she saw him, Lam Hao. Beside him sat her mother, hands folded like an obedient guest. Her chest tightened, but her expression didn't shift. The chair beside her was labeled with her name in careful script. She sat. The air smelled of wine and rehearsed charm. Chairman Kwong raised his glass, speaking of trust and loyalty. Each word felt like a performance, each smile a transaction. And listened quietly, watching their eyes instead of their mouths. When her turn came, she spoke softly about data accuracy and ethics. Her tone was even, almost too calm for the room. NGUY letter 1EC7T, the CFO, smiled faintly, a warning disguised as warmth. Sometimes, she said, numbers must adapt to context. Anne's fork paused halfway to her plate. Context doesn't change arithmetic, she replied, polite but firm. Hao chuckled, a sound she knew too well. Still stubborn, he said. You always thought rules could save you. He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. This is bigger than you. Don't embarrass yourself. And turned her head slowly, meeting his eyes. I'm not embarrassed, she said. I'm documenting. The smile vanished from his face for half a second. NGUY, letter 1EC7T, cleared her throat, steering the conversation back to markets. Wine flowed again, laughter resumed, the performance reset. But Anne's hand slipped into her purse, calm and precise. She lifted her phone, the camera shielded by her napkin. Click, a quiet sound beneath the noise. The lens captured Hao's platinum credit card on the table. Embossed name, Ha Sun Logistics Limited. Her pulse didn't waver. She sent the image to her private encrypted drive under the tag, Proof 07. The notification ping was silent, invisible beneath the tablecloth. The rest of the meal blurred into noise and waiting. Her mother reached for her hand once, whispering, just let it go. And didn't answer. She watched the wine swirl in her glass. Every ripple reflected the chandelier above, fractured light and lies. When dessert came, she stood, murmuring something about an early report. Polite exits were harder to chase than accusations. In the elevator, she finally exhaled, slow and even. Her phone vibrated once, file upload complete. Outside, rain began again, streaking down the tower's mirrored face. Each drop caught a fragment of light before falling into darkness. She whispered, every receipt tells its story. Then she walked into the night, calm, deliberate, unstoppable. The parking garage was empty, except for the echo of footsteps. Min and felt the vibration before she heard his voice. You just couldn't leave it alone, could you? Lam Hao stepped from the shadows, his tie loosened, eyes sharp. Rainwater dripped from the concrete, sealing onto his shoulder. And didn't move. She stood by her car, key in hand, calm. You shouldn't be here, she said, voice low but steady. He laughed, short and brittle. Neither should you. He took a step closer, the smell of whiskey sharp between them. All that nonsense at dinner. You think anyone will believe you? And tilted her head slightly, her gaze cutting through him. Belief isn't required, she said, only proof. He reached out, fingers brushing her arm too firmly. The movement was instinctive, control, like always. She shifted back, letting his grip miss by inches. Careful, she whispered, glancing upward. His brow furrowed, then followed her eyes. The red light of the security camera blinked once, recording. He cursed, stepping away, anger choking his throat. You'll regret this, he hissed. They'll crush you. I've already been crushed, she said. Now I document. She got into her car, locked the door, and drove into the rain. Behind her, the garage swallowed his voice whole. By morning, an email from HR awaited her. Subject: administrative leave effective immediately. The reason: behavior inconsistent with internal conduct policy. And stared at the message until her reflection blurred in the screen. So this was their counterattack: silence and procedure. She opened the company portal and clicked Defer Review. The system asked for confirmation. She pressed yes. The countdown began, 14 business days. No alarms, no notifications, just a clock ticking quietly in the code. Each day she checked the logs, watching the timer move. Executives stalled meetings, delayed responses, avoided her name. Meanwhile, the code prepared itself, patient and precise. Day 7, she received a call from a blocked number. Her mother's voice trembled through static. Stop this and please. And closed her eyes, the ache dull but familiar. Tell him to stop, she said softly, then hung up. Day 10, rumors spread that the audit team had been breached. Files missing, emails duplicated, unexplained server activity. Day 13, she saw Howe in the lobby, shouting at IT staff. His face was pale, his tie gone, sweat darkening his collar. Midnight of day 14, arrived without ceremony. And sat in her apartment, lights off, laptop open. The timer on her dashboard hit 0. At 00:01, the automation triggered. Encrypted packets left the internal network silently. Copies went to the audit committee, the insurers, and a legal contact. A new alert blinked on her phone. Transmission successful. At that same moment, the company's server lights flickered red. In a boardroom miles away, Howe opened his laptop and froze. Error messages filled his screen, each tagged with her watermark. And watched the rain outside, calm, almost peaceful. She whispered, "Order restores itself." The city lights blurred, reflecting in the glass like confession. Somewhere far above, the tower's alarms finally began to sound. Morning broke with headlines instead of sunlight. Fuang Min, under investigation for corporate fraud. Names scrolled across the screen, each one familiar. Executives resigned, accounts frozen, silence replaced power. And read the news from her small kitchen, coffee cooling untouched. The world finally spoke the truth she had written months ago. She didn't smile. She only exhaled, slow and steady. Outside, the tower's reflection trembled in the morning rain. Her phone buzzed once, a message from the law firm. Evidence verified, inquiry proceeding, you're protected. She deleted it after reading. No need for souvenirs. The black notebook sat open on her desk, nearly full. She wrote one last line at the bottom of the final page. Case closed, balance restored. Then she tore out the last sheet and burned it in the sink. Smoke curled like memory, brief and weightless. She packed her suitcase again, lighter this time. No ghosts followed. No shadows waited by the door. As she stepped outside, the city felt new, almost kind. For the first time, her silence wasn't fear. It was peace.